RJ didn't have as good of a shooting night that I would have liked. And I'm kind of thinking that we might have brought in RJ and he might be a shooting guard from a different era that would have thrived in a different era. And you're seeing time and time again that RJ is having trouble with his shot. And also he's having some trouble finishing around the rim. And if he's going to be a scorer, how are we going to have him on the team if he's having issues not only shooting the shot from outside, but also finishing around and in the basket?
My answer to that is that we need a big man who can stretch the floor. If if we're focusing on only having players like Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel as our centers, and then bringing in Taj Gibson, who's also a clog the paint kind of center, it's not going to be good for Barrett's game. I think once we get Obi Toppin back and he is able to start hitting his shot consistently, if he plays any center position while Barrett's on the floor, then you'll see Barrett get into the basket much more quickly because he's going to be forcing other centers to guard him at three. But yeah, this would be a lot easier if we had a center like a Kevin Love who clearly can easily stretch the floor. Then that would help RJ because RJ his issue isn't getting past his defender. He can easily get past any defender on him, but once he gets blocked by a center, it's
When he's contested at the rim.
yeah, and nothing he could do about that.
Yeah. You know, like I said, my only concern is we might have drafted a shooting guard that was built for a different era. And, a lot of people say, Dwayne Wade was a similar type of player, a player where, I won't say similar, but a player that didn't have an outside shot, was able to develop it later on. But even before he had it, he was still able to be effective. The difference I seen between Dwayne Wade and RJ is the fact that RJ is nowhere near as athletic as Dwayne Wade. And I think that compromises him when he's at the basket and trying to score.
I mean, I've never really thought about it like that. But he's not a D Wade, he's not athletic. But like we mentioned in one of our earlier videos, if he were to develop his shot earlier, since he already knows what it is that he's lacking, if he's able to just develop that shot, then he can be a much better player. I mean, look at the games where he does hit his shot consistently. He's averaging like almost 20 points a game, and that's with him hitting his shot consistently. Like, let me just double check. I believe it was against the Hawks. No, it was not.
Well, he had a good game against the Hawks because I did a film study on that game.
No, but from three, he shot 1 for 5.
Oh,
no, it
okay.
was against the Pacers. He was 4 for 5 from three.
Yeah, that Pacers was a good game for him.
Yeah, it's like when he's hitting that shot, he disrupts defenses completely because they don't know what to do. Because if they close out on him too quickly, he's already at the basket.
Mm-hmm.
So his issue is an easy one to solve. He can easily adjust his game. He just needs to work on his shooting. That's really it.
Yeah.
He does everything pretty well.
And with Mitchell Robinson, how many fouls did Mitchell Robinson have in that game? Well, before we move on to Mitchell Robinson, do you have the stat line for? Do you have the stat line for what's his name? RJ.
Yeah, so RJ against the game against OKC, he had 19 points. He had 10 rebounds, but 7 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. No turnovers. I mean, aside from his shooting percentage, which
that's
was
what I really wanted you to touch on, is shooting percentage.
No, yeah, he was bad from the field and from three. He was 33% from field goal and 20% from three. He shot 7 for 21. He took the most shots out of anyone. Yeah, it wasn't a good game for him. And he played the most minutes by far. He played 44 minutes.
That's another thing. Tibbs is going to run. I mean, I know these guys are young, but we have other players on the roster that I think can contribute to winning. So I'm not sure why he's so reluctant to go deeper down the roster.
No one else was even close to 44 minutes, though.
Well, did he have anybody else in 40?
No, after RJ, the player who played the most minutes was Austin Rivers playing 32 minutes. That's how big of a gap. It was just RJ playing.
Hmm.
Because Austin Rivers 32 minutes, Eford Payton 30 minutes, Julius Randle 30 minutes. Like, I don't know why he just decided that RJ was staying in the game
Especially shooting
the
at that
entire
clip.
time. Exactly.
But let's move on to Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson, I've liked Mitchell Robinson and his performance. Like I said, there was some lapses defensively, but for the most part, Mitchell Robinson has looked like an improved player this year, and I think he did a serviceable job, as the starter against the dang, slipped my mind. What game are we?
Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah. Like, I know Mitchell Robinson didn't have the greatest game against the Thunder, but he's still a pest defensively. And I don't think anybody can say anything against that, because when he's on the floor, the defense looks completely different as opposed to Nerlens Noel. And I don't think anybody really can contest to that. I know we brought in Taj to give some more minutes at the big man position, whether that be at the 4 or the 5. But I think clearly Mitchell Robinson is our future at center. And at some point, we're going to get Obi back. And I want to see how Obi fits next to Mitch, because if Obi can actually hit that outside shot, I think it's going to open up the paint for Mitch to be a little bit more dominant as well offensively.
Absolutely. Going back to your point with Mitchell being a pest defensively. So yeah, he didn't have the stats. He only had 6 points, 5 rebounds. However, he was one of the only Knicks players with a positive plus minus of +6, as opposed to Nerlens Noel, who was a -14. So yeah, it goes to show that he is impacting defensively, although it's not reflecting in his stats. Clearly, with him being a positive plus minus in a game where we basically got blown out, shows that while he was on the floor for those 26 minutes, he was actually stopping the team from scoring. Another thing that was disappointing about it, and it has nothing to do with him, is just that he only took 4 shots. He was 3 for 4, 75%. If he's already shooting at a decent percentage, let's get him more touches. Some of those touches that RJ got that he missed clearly should have been touches for Mitchell if Mitchell's clearly, from the scouting reports record, having a good game.
Well, the thing with Mitchell Robinson is a lot of those buckets he don't really score on his own. A lot of those buckets he'll get on like putbacks, because I don't think they run any plays that are like to get Mitchell. I mean, they'll run pick and roll and he'll get open in that regard, but they don't run any sets where they're trying to actively get Mitchell Robinson the ball. And I think that's, it does Mitch a disservice, because we're not allowed to see what he could potentially do. We don't know if he's going to be a better option than RJ bricking some of those contested shots. We won't know that until we're able to see that on the court. My assumption is Tibbs isn't seeing that in practice, so that's why he's not trying to move forward and with that player or with Mitchell Robinson offensively in that role.
I get where it's coming from. However, I feel like that would at least alleviate some of the pressure from RJ. One, in the sense that if Mitchell is able to actually score, like if he starts setting more screens and doing pick and rolls, then his defender knows that, all right, I got to stay on Mitch. I actually got to focus on him. So when RJ does try to drive to the paint, the defender will be much more hesitant to drop off Mitch, because he's used to Mitch, going to the basket, or a pass going to Mitch and then Mitch scoring. So I feel like that can actually alleviate some of the issues that RJ's having with finishing at the rim contested.
Yeah, the only thing is with Tibbs, he doesn't really run too much pick and roll. They do run it some, but you see more so like triangle principles and more so about ball movement, as opposed to pick and roll, try to find a mismatch and then attack the mismatch, which is what we see with an offense like the Hawks, who we played against.
True. I mean, it didn't work out for them, so I guess
they're over there beefing right now.
What do you mean?
What you call it? Collins and Trey. Collins.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And going back to our last video where one of the commented, if we would take Josh Collins over Jared Allen. Now I see what you mean. Josh Collins is nice. Like, he could shoot. He could, he's nice. But then you look at the game that Jared Allen had against Gobert. Jared Allen killed him.
Mm.
So it's still a toss-up between those two, if the Knicks were to get any of them.
Yeah, I'd probably prefer Collins after seeing him. I like what he's able to bring both offensively and some of the tools he shows defensively as well.
He could shoot. I was surprised. He was just pulling like a regular shooter.
Yeah.
Light.
All right, so let's
hopefully he comes on the trading block or something then if him and Trey are.
Well, they may not extend him. So he'll be a free agent, and then if anything, I guess. But we got too many power forwards as it is. We got Julius Randle, we got Obi. I'm not upset we drafted Obi, but if we were going to sit there and have Julius Randle perform the way he performed, or he's performing now, if this is going to keep up, then to be honest, I probably would have preferred us drafting a player at a different position, to be honest. Because right now, when Obi comes back, Obi's going to kind of be stuck behind Julius Randle. And if Randle continues to play like this, he's going to hold on to that starting spot for an extended period of time.
Clearly, I mean, he's one of those players who, I mean, he's one of the coaches who prioritizes winning over anything. So, of course, Obi's not going to get the minutes, especially if he has a consistent vet doing what he's doing in Julius Randle. And then I was talking about the fact that, like, we shouldn't be mad that he's a winning coach, because look at us right now with a positive record of 5-4, with a better record than the Nets. Who would have thought?
Right. A lot of people were like, yo, the Nets are the talk of the town, but the Knicks are out here. They're performing to their best ability. And the only thing I'm really not too fond of is the fact that we keep giving up in these second halves. I don't want to say give up, but we're not putting maximum effort in trying to come back at the end of these games.